We're deeply honored to have the forum inaugurated today by Chancellor Dr. Merkel and Prime Minister Löfven. With those opening words, I hand over to the Swedish Minister of Enterprise and Innovation, Mr. Mikael Damberg. Please.
Chancellor, Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In October last year, I was part of the Swedish state visit to Germany. I met with German business leaders, with members of government. And during my visit, I became even more convinced that our two countries are a perfect match when it comes to innovation. Because when other companies see obstacles, German and Swedish companies most often see new market opportunities. And where other countries stagger in front of big societal challenges, our governments take the lead to find the solutions of tomorrow. This common approach often puts our countries and our companies in a pole position to take advantage of new possibilities. And that is exactly what we've been doing here at the roundtable discussions earlier today. To sum up, the last 2 hours has made it clear that Germans and Swedes share the passion not only for innovation, but also for a new partnership between our countries. We have taken the first step to concrete actions under the 4 themes of the German-Swedish Innovation Partnership for a Sustainable Future. We talked about mobility, test beds, digitalization of SMEs, and e-health. I do believe we can look forward to a great future cooperation on these issues, and I'm glad to be able to be part of this common journey. Now, it is my great honor to introduce the next speaker, our guest of honor, Madam Chancellor, Dr. Merkel.
Thank you very much. I will speak in German.
Then the language. Sehr geehrter
Prime Minister, dear Stefan Löfven, Minister Damberg, ladies and gentlemen. Germany and Sweden look back on a proud tradition of good economic relations. Already at the time of the Hanseatic League, trade was brisk across the Baltic Sea. German merchants brought different types of cloth, wines or spices to your country, and on their way back, they took Swedish iron back to their own country. Today, the range of goods traded is a somewhat different one, but we can also say that it has broadened somewhat. Today, Germany is the most important trading partner of Sweden, and also as far as foreign direct investments are concerned, both countries are very close to each other. There are about 900 German companies with around 60,000 employees that have set up shop here in Sweden, and in turn, more than 1,200 Swedish enterprises are active in Germany with more than 100,000 employees. Today, in our talks with the Swedish Prime Minister, we also obviously pointed to the fact that we're very closely linked by our political persuasions, by our culture. We share democratic values, we share convictions, and our way of life and the way we do business are similar. Incidentally, my constituency on the Baltic Sea, the island of Rügen and the city of Stralsund are in my constituency. Well, in their history, they were at certain times under the rule of the Swedish crown, and I invite you to come to Stralsund. It is part of the World Cultural Heritage, was wonderfully restored after German unity, and the annual Stralsund Wallenstein Days remind us of our common history. All of these many diverse and close relations between our countries make it relatively easy for us to work together and to embark on the future together. And I think that this German-Swedish Tech Forum, with its motto, digital transformation, shaping it together, indeed lends itself to such a cooperation. And digitization is indeed one of the great challenges of our time, the great innovation of our time. that has changed the way we do business, our day-to-day life, our places of work, political debates, and in all of walks of life, engineering, social sciences, we deal with the consequences of digital advances. At our places of work, it plays also an important role. And going beyond technological aspects, I would hope and wish for a cooperation where we point out what does this actually mean for places of work? What sort of, for example, labor legislation do we need? We're very much in that is very much in its infancy. You have a very proud tradition of co-determination, for example, cooperation between two sides of industry, and we have to think about what this means for this particular area. But today we're talking about technology in this technology forum, and we know, for example, that the value chains are completely changed due to these new advances, the Internet of Things, 3D printers, and data-driven business models are changing the way we do business very significantly. Now, we have to see the risks. But the risks insofar as if we do not meet this challenge, we may very quickly become the workbench of all of those who actually have a mastery of these particular industries, and we have to be all the way up there with all of those who these days are masters of those value chains. The Prime Minister and I very often in the European Council meeting point to the fact that we need to take this seriously, because Europeans need a bit too long in coming to decisions in order to match the sheer speed with which the world of today changes. So speed is of the essence now. In Bratislava, when we, as 27 member states, got together, we also discussed this. How can we speed up our decision-making processes? Because we are at one in saying the European single market today, 500 million, even after Britain has left, there are still hundreds of millions of citizens, is large enough in order to tap this potential of a digital market. Obviously, this European single market, well, there is a bit of a language problem, but in the digital world, the English language holds sway. So I think the development of the single digital market should not meet with too many obstacles. That ought to be our goal. The European Commission has set out what needs to be done to this. There is obviously an infrastructure that needs to be put into place. Rural areas, for example, also have to be connected to the digital world in order to enable us to develop, for example, telemedicine and other areas. But there are also other questions, big data management, for example, which in the General Data Protection Regulation we tried to in a way hedge in and contain by giving it a legal underpinning. But I think we need to discuss how this is to play out in practice. And then we also have issues related to digital copyright. There too we have to find answers. And also how can we set up an economic platform for these particular businesses. Now, Sweden and Germany, as I'm firmly convinced, need to see to it that the digital agenda comes to pass in this legislative term. We cannot afford to lag behind, and unfortunately Europe seems to tend towards needing to regulate everything that has not yet been regulated, and only what has been regulated is allowed. So that gives us, in a way, a technological disadvantage as regards, for example, the United States of America. They're much stronger in this respect. Now, digital single market, exchanges with other parts of the world, also leads to a situation where those who come out strongly in favor of free trade, Sweden, for example, traditionally, as the Germans too. Well, you know, we've had a bit of a debate internally. If I only think of CETA, the free trade agreement with Canada, I would still say that we are very much champions of free trade. I must say that I'm gratified to note that we were able to conclude this with CETA. sometimes you thought people had gone mad. I mean, for the first time, this was a free trade agreement that stipulated certain economic standards, but also environmental standards, also standards of how the two sides of industry should cooperate with one another. And one wondered why people should be against it. And I think it is indeed a milestone that this was possible. I would like to see the same kind of free trade agreement with the United States. Unfortunately, discussion there seemed to be even more difficult. Well, we will have to wait and see now how things will turn out. Sweden and Germany are among the countries who are most strongly in innovation. We only spend 3% of our GDP. You spend much more. So far, we've been proud, actually, of this. But now I see that we lag somewhat behind. So we have to try to close that gap compared with you. And we lay the foundation for our productivity in spending money on research and development. It is the basis, after all, for our prosperity. We will not be able to pay high wages if we are not innovative. Now, the joint initiative of the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce and the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Science, after all, serves this very purpose of trying to bring us together, closer together. And this bilateral technology forum is something that I very much welcome. I think it's an excellent platform to have exchanges and to exchange the expertise, the know-how from both countries and pool our resources. There have been very good talks by our respective economic ministries. There has been a first round table, as the minister quite rightly pointed out, and I think we ought to continue this cooperation in the future consistently. You mentioned the areas in which these debates take place. Mobility is of the essence because, after all, mobility in a way is emblematic of three disruptive developments: sharing property, drivetrains, and autonomous driving. If our countries miss out on these developments, well, our two economies would indeed be very much at a disadvantage. So we have to be all the way up front. Life sciences and e-health also comes to mind. We believe that such a technology forum can help us to render this development more sustainable, more energy efficient. Germany and Sweden are very open-minded as regards climate protection, as regards low energy consumption and innovation. Now, on mobility again, I think here too we have to see to it what sort of infrastructure is needed for these new drivetrains, and here too I think we can learn from one another. So on the whole, I think this is a very good method, not only to keep talking to one another, but to keep driving matters forward. I would like to thank all of you who have made a contribution to this. I think particularly cooperation of our small and medium-sized companies ought to be promoted. That is also what the Chambers of Commerce are doing, because the big companies are doing quite well as regards this great leap forward into the digital world. But I think smaller and medium-sized companies need a bit of support. We in Germany have, through setting up this platform, Industry 4.0, concentrated very much on helping small and medium-sized companies, because they, after all, are the suppliers to bigger companies. So thank you again for allowing me to be with you today. I think, Prime Minister, this is an excellent example of actually practical cooperation that is implemented when you sit around a table and have an exchange of views. That's a nice thing too. But here we can see they can do quite well also without us politicians, and I very much welcome that.
Chancellor Merkel, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be here today, and not least I'm honored to be accompanied by the German Chancellor. It's a pleasure to not least hear about the breadth in the Swedish-German cooperation in the field of innovation. And I'm very happy to be here for the opening of the German-Swedish TechForum. Germany and Sweden are two countries with many characteristics in common. We have a large proportion of innovative problem solvers and also entrepreneurial minds. We actually share the willingness to adapt in times of change and make something even better for the generations to come. To put it simply, we combine good business with the moral obligation to do the right thing. And as you know, there is no shortage of challenges. Climate change, just to give one example, is pushing us all to find these new solutions. And for sure, there is a big market waiting to buy these new smart products and emission-reducing solutions. So being at the forefront will create new jobs, it will create growth, and innovation and cooperation are two of the keys to sustainable economic development. I have great respect for the way Germany has been able to innovate and export new solutions and state-of-the-art technology to the rest of the world year after year after year. Not least, it is inspiring to study the many medium-sized so-called hidden champions which have been powering German exports. The success of the German Industry 4.0 is widely known, and we have been fortunate enough here in Sweden to learn from it when we established the Swedish Strategy for Smart Industry. And the German success of automation, modernization, and digitalization of its industry is something we can all learn from. I believe our countries have much to gain from increased cooperation on specific innovation projects and from sharing our experiences. So I'm very happy about this German-Swedish partnership on innovation. I see great potential in partnering more closely, both bilaterally but also within the European Union. Innovation is actually one of the things I personally find most fascinating and inspiring. As the proud founding country of both Skype and Spotify, with Stockholm being second only to Silicon Valley in terms of the number of startups per capita in the whole world, we will continue to foster a development where new ways of thinking and smart solutions are encouraged from preschools to universities. And Swedish success depends, of course, on our ability to stay competitive in a globalized economy. We will compete with knowledge and with skills, and therefore we need the best schools for our children. We need to ensure access to good education, not only during the first 20, 30 years of a life, but throughout our ever-changing working life. We have increased Sweden's focus on innovation and stepped up broad cooperation. One of the first things I actually did as Prime Minister was to set up a National Innovation Council, which I chair and which is now working with representatives of business, politics, trade unions, academia and civil society, because we want to clear paths for development and growth. And we strive to learn from positive examples. For one of the first meetings that we had, the Council invited a German expert because we wanted him to explain more about the Energiewende, the impressive policy encompassing all key sectors for transition to green, low-carbon energy. But I also want to underline one thing. This is not something that we're doing only for business. We do this with businesses, and that's important, because the success of Swedish innovation is built on a close collaboration with industry and other stakeholders. And that is why we have created innovation partnership programs and also the concept of Testbed Sweden. We are currently running 5 programs addressing next generation transport system, smart cities, circular and bioeconomy, life sciences, and lastly, connected industry and new materials. And of course, digitalization is obviously at the forefront of them all. And then one can ask, what does this idea of cooperation for innovation mean in practice? Let me just give you one example. Just a few months ago, the world's first electric public road was opened in Sandviken, about 200 kilometers north of where we are right now. And in a partnership between Scania, Siemens, local and national authorities, a hybrid lorry is now operated by a local transport company on the electric road, delivering materials to the steel industry in that very area. So this has gone from being a vision for the future to a reality today. And it gives us a hint of what can be done to achieve a fossil-free transport sector. And I'm eager to continue this journey with all of you here. Today's roundtable has initiated a new and stronger German-Swedish partnership for innovation, 4 priorities. First, mobility, because we know that the demands on transportation will continue to rise. Future travel and transport have to cut down greenhouse gas emissions dramatically if we are to save this planet. Second, digitalization. Both Sweden and Germany have strategies for smarter, connected and more competitive industries, and we also face the challenge to get the small and medium-sized enterprises to lead this digital transformation. Third, strengthening e-health. Our populations are getting older. The demands for quality and healthcare are increasing, and we need to seize also this opportunity or these opportunities of digitalization to improve quality, efficiency, and also access to healthcare. And fourth, lastly, we will improve test facilities for industrial development. A global competition is increasing, and we need, in this environment, take our innovation capacity to a new level. And we aim to increase the number of innovations tested in real-life environments and launched on the global market. So finally, Chancellor Merkel, this partnership brings together our governments, businesses, and institutions. And it paves the way for deepened future cooperation and for new innovative breakthroughs. I look forward to our growing partnership, where we will work together to promote growth and economic development in the best interests of everyone. Thank you very much.
Frau Bundeskanzlerin, Statsministern, Minister Damberg, I would like to express a big thank you for a very kind address, and with those highly appreciated statements and views on our future cooperation given from both the German and the Swedish governments, I think that the German-Swedish TechForum is really ready to take off. And the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce and IVA feel very much honored by your presence and are really excited now to start this new bilateral arena for exchanging knowledge and experiences on the digitalization of our economy. And we have a very ambitious program going forward, and it's a long-term program. And among the several activities in the near future, we plan a follow-up conference in Stuttgart next year, which underlines the long-term perspective of our forum. Und Frau Bundeskanzlerin, es war ein besonderes Ehre für uns, dass Sie hier war, und wir können dann dieses German-Swedish TechForum
German-Swedish TechForum can now be properly launched.
und ich wünsche Ihnen eine gute Rückreise nach Berlin.
I wish you a very good trip back to Berlin, which for some time was also my home. So yet again, a very warm welcome to you and auf Wiedersehen. Thank you.